If there's one constant in a belly dance costume, it would be the hip belt. Nearly all belly dance costumes have hip belts, but they have changed over time. In this video, I want to look at how they have changed over the last 100 years or so. Hi, I'm Kashmir, and today I want to look at the evolution of the belly dance hip belt. What I often do in the last day of a course with my beginners is I lay out a selection of hip belts and ask them to arrange them, oldest to newest, although they have to ignore the fact that I've actually only got modern materials, but it's a style we're looking at. So how are we going to do it? Now the answer may surprise some of you, but most people get the first one right. Again, ignoring the fact that this is very modern material. The idea of just taking a shawl your shawl and wrapping it around your hips is the oldest known type of hip belt. And this was done by both dancers and non-dancers. So this was quite common in Egypt for women to actually wear their shawl around their hips. Around 1850 you started getting this sort of thing. I haven't actually got it as a belt, I've actually got it sewn into the skirt. But basically a series of ribbons on a belt. Imagine there's a belt at the top, and this isn't actually a stage costume. And this was used only by dancers. So get the date, 1850. We often associate this style of costume with the Banat Mazin in the 20th century, but it was around much longer than this. So this was the first dedicated hip belt found in Egypt. The next major evolution came with rakshaki. Now this isn't a terribly good example, but this is a fitted hip belt. They're sometimes actually sewn into the dress, or they can be put over a skirt. It just depends on your style and how you want it to fit. So basically we're looking at something that fits tightly around the hips and is decorated with beads, fringing, sequins, whatever, to make the hips more prominent. You can see. What about the coins? You forgot the coin belts. No, I haven't forgotten the coin belts. The coin belts come up in the 1970s from the US, we believe. So according to Morocco, the coin belt was created in the 1970s by Edwina Nearing. This was something they came up with. Now, whether or not they were influenced by a Greek folk dance hip belt, which has also some coins on it, we don't know. We don't know if this was independent, going through their own mythology, or whether they'd seen it. And in actual fact, I'm not actually quite sure how long the Greek folk dance hip belt was around. But I have seen photographs of a hip belt with very small trimming of coins around the edge. But basically, as used in the West, these things were created in the 1970s from the US. A few years later, Lucy and Morocco came up with a similar idea, only they used crochet and beading. So a very similar thing, silent, thank goodness, which they used for their performance. So the thing is that these are wraparound. Anyone can put them on, wrap them around. It's not a fitted belt. Both of these are actually wraparound belts. And actually, I actually put a clip on mine so they don't come off and I don't strain the beads. Now in 1978 they took their idea, which is of course very labour intensive, to Cairo, to Mahmoud Abed al-Ghaffar. He's the guy who has a big costume shop in Cairo, and asked if he could actually produce these for them. And not only did he do this, but he also added his own twist. He fused the two. So he put coins and crochet together. So that was his contribution, again, late 1970s. Since then, of course, we have seen some of the Egyptian costumes almost move away from the belt idea. So especially with the fitted lycra dresses, what you'll often see is just a embellishment around the hip area, but not a belt as such. So you don't tend to see as much fringe these days, and it's just an indication of that's where the hip would be. And not to forget the camel tassels. Okay, we will forget the camel tassels. So that's a very brief overview of the evolution of the hip belt, and I hope that was informative for you.